And I've been counting days to get away to see you again.
Hey there team, welcome back. Barry Watson here, aka Wild Mountain Man, and of course, tenting enthusiast. Welcome back as I come from this idyllic location of the Nina Hut, South Island, and today I want to focus on another essential element of wild camping, and that is how to successfully pitch your tent regardless of whether you've got hard ground, you've got soft ground. I also want to share with you some really important hacks, so stay towards the end as I talk about what happens when you do get your tent set up, what can you do before you rest for the night to make sure that your tent is going to be the safest, securest it can be and give you the most enjoyable night possible. So if you're ready to deep dive in, let's go. The first tip is practice. You don't want to see your wild camping tenting site being the place where you practice setting up your tent. Even in 3-season tenting situations, you want to make sure that you practice at home. If you've got a brand new tent, practice putting it up in your lounge, in your backyard. You may be a seasoned wild camper and but you may not have been out for a while. Before you get out on your next trip, practice. The last thing you want to do is get to your campsite and go, oh, how do you put this tent up? How do you put the outer to the inner? How do these poles fit in together? That's not what you want to do. Number 2 tip is you want to make sure that you place your tent in the best possible position to get the most enjoyable time for that night. Now, there's several things you can do. Firstly, if you can't find a flat platform, make sure that you put the wider end, or where you're going to have your head, higher than your feet. You'll find that if your head is below your feet during the night, you'll find that very unpleasant because the blood will drain down to your head and you will not like it. Another good place to pitch your tent is where it's going to capture the morning sun. Why? Well, 2 reasons. One is because when the sun will hit the tent, I generally feel a lot more powered. I feel like I'm ready to take on the challenges of whatever the day brings. Secondly, if you've got dew, if you've got condensation, if you've got frosting on the outside of the tent, that's going to create a lot more weight that you're going to have to carry. So if the sun can hit your tent early in the day and start to dry it out fully or somewhat, that's less water that you don't have to carry. So let's go on site now and look at some effective ways in which you can pitch your tent regardless of whatever terrain you're pitching it into. The first job is obviously to take it out of its bag, but as you'll see right now, there's a bit of a breeze behind me, and so what I've done is I put my back towards the wind and allowing the assistance of the wind to allow the tent to just fall out in front of me. So go with the flow, don't fight against the wind at all. Then you want to go ahead and anchor the 4 corners with pegs, and that'll just secure it and give you a bit more breathing room in terms of if there is a breeze or if there is a bit of a wind. Then you want to go ahead and put your poles in, whether it's a single pole, as you can see on my tent it's a triple pole, and you want to be able to attach the inner, if you've got a single pitch tent, to the poles, or if you've got a multi-pitch tent, which means that your inner and your outer go together, go ahead and attach the outer to the poles. And what I want to do now is give you some really helpful tips that'll help get the pegs in the ground regardless of whether you've got super soft or really hard ground.
So in terms of your guy line, you don't certainly want it like this, which is like loose as a goose, nor do you want it this tight so that you could literally play bass guitar on it. And obviously if you do that, you're going to put extra pressure around your pole on the areas that hold on to the fabric, and that's not what you want. So you want it tight enough so that it can move a bit. There should be some flexibility, because when the wind comes, the tent does want to have some flex in it, and flex is fine. What I generally find is at the night time, just go around the tent before you go to sleep and just check the tension on the guy lines to make sure that they're tight enough but also have some flexibility, so that there is some movement, which is normal and natural and good for your tent. What's a good idea before you hop in your tent and settle in for the night and put all your gear in it is just go in there and just run your hands over it to make sure that there's nothing going to potentially damage and pierce your tent floor. And this, you can see here, this is really raised because there's a lot of tussock here, so I'm going to have to use my mat to push it down. One last tip that you might find helpful is sometimes you'll notice on the sides here it can get a bit saggy, and it actually encroaches on the volume and the space you've got on the inside. So what you can do is you can go up here to the elasticated toggles, and what you can do is, if you feel as though it's saggy here, you can actually undo it and spin it a quarter, a half, a whole turn, and then put it up, and that will shorten the distance between the two and pulling in the inner. And so you'll see this one I've left alone, but this one here I've given a half turn, this one here I've left alone. So I've adjusted it, and you want to adjust it in such a way that it pulls in the inner without putting added or too much pressure on these bits here. I hope you found these tips and hacks on how to successfully set up your tent helpful. As per normal, can I please ask that you subscribe to the channel, then you can get the latest news on other subsequent helpful wild camping videos I'll be putting out. Obviously like the video, and if you've got any questions or comments or feedback, please place them below. I always read everyone and respond accordingly. So until next time, stay safe, stay strong, see you in the next one, team. Bye.